5. I'm Joy DeMandin. GOP presidential hopefuls are battling it out in Michigan. Texas Governor George W. Bush beat Arizona Senator John McCain by a decisive 11 points in South Carolina. But recent polls show them running neck and neck in Michigan. McCain is running stronger among independents and blue-collar Reagan Democrats. Iran is holding an election of its own, and it's becoming clear that the Iranian people want a reform-minded parliament. The U.S. State Department is welcoming the results. A spokesman said it shows the Iranian people want policies of openness and engagement. So far, reformers have won 72% of the seats in the assembly. And our next update is at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned now for Fox News Sunday.
Laura and I are honored and humbled by the huge victory we had here in South Carolina.
South Carolina has spoken. This morning, reaction from presidential contender George W. Bush. We'll look ahead to Tuesday's Michigan primary with Bush supporter, Michigan Governor John Engler, and McCain campaign manager Rick Davis. Plus, post-South Carolina chalk talk with the Beltway boys, Fred Barnes and Morton Kondracki, and our all-star panel, Britt Hume, Karen Tumulty, and Juan Williams on the February 20th edition of Fox News Sunday. Good morning and welcome to Fox News Sunday. We have final results from yesterday's South Carolina Republican primary. George W. Bush won the battle for the Palmetto State by 11 percentage points over Senator John McCain. Last night, the dueling duo headed for Michigan, which holds a primary Tuesday, and our Fox News correspondents are there. David Schuster with the McCain campaign and Carl Cameron with the Bush campaign. Carl, give us a full report.
Well, Tony, here's how it's playing. The Sunday Detroit News and Free Press calls it a key South Carolina win for Bush. The Grand Rapids newspaper says Michigan could be a big turning point. And a new poll out today that was actually taken before Bush's South Carolina win shows that the Texas governor has pulled to within 2 points of McCain here in Michigan, whereas Bush trailed here a week ago by 9 points. Bush arrived here in Grand Rapids in the wee hours of the morning, expecting a small turnout from a relatively subdued welcoming crowd. Instead, it was a huge rally, and Bush immediately began to look past John McCain, his Republican rival, to focus on Al Gore and the general election.
We have a chance to continue what we started tonight in South Carolina, and that is the beginning of the end of the Clinton-Gore era in Washington, D.C.
Bush is clearly riding high. He believes that they stunned John McCain in a state that the Arizona senator had said would be make or break for him, but they also admit that they're a little stunned by the tone of McCain's concession remarks. Bush aides calling it a sledgehammer, and they're trying to foster some sort of a backlash, saying the real McCain has begun to come out, and he's quite negative. For more on the McCain campaign, we'll go now to my colleague David Schuster, who is in Dearborn, Michigan.
Carl, thank you. Arizona Senator John McCain arrived here in Dearborn just after midnight, hoping that the voters of Michigan will reject what the McCain campaign believes worked for George W. Bush in South Carolina. The McCain campaign is convinced the roof fell in because of what they describe as the barrage of negative attacks that they were confronted with on radio, television, direct mail, email, even over the telephone. They believe the Bush strategy will hurt the Republican Party in November, and that was the central theme of McCain's defiant speech in Charleston. Here's a brief sample.
I want the presidency in the best way, not the worst way.
The McCain campaign hoping to tamp down whatever bounce Bush may get because of South Carolina, and McCain also hoping to reclaim the mantle of reform. He was bewildered as he wandered around the hotel lobby last night that Bush had actually been able to successfully claim the mantle of reform, something that McCain believed that he would have for himself in this campaign. Tony?
David, what was Senator McCain's mood like on the plane from South Carolina to Michigan last night?
Well, Tony, he was fairly relaxed, except at one point when a few reporters pressed him about part of his speech and what he meant when he said that he had the experience and Bush had the pretense. At that point, McCain became fairly defiant and a little testy with reporters who repeatedly tried to get him to say what he actually meant. Tony?
So he didn't give a full answer. Okay, David Schuster, thanks so much. After the results were in last night, I talked with Governor Bush. I began by congratulating him on his win.
Tony, I'm honored. Thank you. I'm humbled by the outpouring of support here in South Carolina. I'm obviously elated with the victory. It The turnout was huge, my margin was significant, and our people are really excited, and so am I.
Senator McCain says you're going to need a good night's sleep because there's going to be a real contest in Michigan, and by way of contrast, he's accusing you, at least implicitly, of a negative campaign, of negativism. What's your response?
I guess you can test the test of a leader is how they react to adversity. I ran a positive campaign. The reason why so many people showed up here in South Carolina to support me was because they heard my hopeful message. They knew I was, in fact, a reformer with results, and I was going to take that reforming attitude to Washington, D.C. Let me give you an interesting statistic, Tony, in this election. A lot of young people came out to the polls today and supported me in big numbers, and they did so because I'm an optimistic person, and they heard that optimistic message.
Well, when you get to the state of Michigan, what are you counting on in terms of turnout? Who are you going to look to for your votes?
Well, I'm going to start with the Republicans. After all, this is the Republican primary. I'm going to do the best job I can of uniting our party, just like I did here in South Carolina. Obviously, I'll be looking to conservative independents and conservative Democrats if they so choose to come into our primary. Interesting enough, in Michigan, the Michigan Democrat Party chairman said, don't be going to vote in the Republican primary because you may lose your credentials or whatever you lose. I hope this is a Republican primary with the conservative independents coming in, and if it is, I'll win.
Will you be debating Senator McCain again?
I don't know yet. The problem now is we got these primaries coming so fast and furious that my traveling is taking me all over the country.
Let's talk a little bit about Michigan. You are going there and you're going to start campaigning. Are you going to try to give us a little sense of your schedule between now and Tuesday?
Well, it's all day long tomorrow and all day long Monday. I talked to my friend John Engler, the governor there. He's got a very exhaustive schedule, he says. He says, make sure you try to get some rest tonight. I said, well, it's going to be kind of hard to do. But I start off in Grand Rapids and work my way across the state, and then, of course, Tuesday morning will be the handshaking at the polls just to get on the news so people know that I'm still working for the vote.
Okay, now when it comes to key issues in Michigan, right now in South Carolina, folks really didn't think that taxes were important as Social Security and Medicare. That's likely to be the case in Michigan. How do you persuade those voters that your plan is better than John McCain's?
I'm going to keep talking about taxes, Tony. You know, I know the polls may not say it, but this is something I believe. And what the Republican Party is, they want somebody to stand on principle and who can lead. And I explain to people loud and clear here, and I'm going to do so in Michigan, the government surplus is not government's money. It is the people's money. And I've laid out a good plan. And it's an important plan to make sure the economy continues to grow. It is also an important plan to make sure that the code gets more fair. The death tax is unfair, and I'm going to get rid of it. The marginal rates on poor citizens is unfair, and I'm going to do something about that as well.
But Governor, also, there's been some interesting switches in the last few days. People have been jumping around, jumping from your camp to Senator McCain. Just said it's interesting to know who your friends are. If they call you and say, you know, I've changed my mind, what are you going to tell them?
You mean if the person comes from my campaign to somebody else's campaign back to my campaign?
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to say you made your decision. You need to stick with it. Of course, you know, once this is over, Tony, I say that in jest, because once this is over, my job will be to unite the party, and I'm going to do so. I've got a really good chance to bring our party to victory. That's one of the ingredients that happened here in South Carolina. It's one of the reasons I won. Besides my agenda, people are looking for somebody to lead, and the people of this state of South Carolina sent a strong message to the rest of America that George W. is a leader.
When you get to Michigan, there's likely to be significant independent and Democratic turnout. How do you appeal to them so they vote for you instead of for John McCain?
Well, I've got a chance of appealing to the philosophical voter. I don't have much of a chance for appealing for that Democrat who's deciding to go in for the primary and to bounce right back to Al Gore. There's been some voices in the Democrat Party there in Detroit, for example, that have been urging Democrats to vote against me and then go back to Al Gore in the general election. There's nothing I can do about that except to maximize our turnout.
Now, do you have any sense that the McCain campaign's directly involved in that?
I don't know, Tony. I really don't know. I've been so embroiled here in South Carolina politics, I've only gotten snippets of the news. But I'll give you a pretty good feel about Michigan once I get up there and start campaigning. Tonight's the night to thank the people of South Carolina and to remind people all around the country why I won. And I won because I was a reformer with results. I showed the people that not only they have a record, but I've got an agenda to do just that should I become the president.
Well, Senator McCain described that as an empty slogan of reform.
Well, you know, he can call all kinds of names. You know, it's interesting. I think you can judge the nature of a leader by how he handles defeat. And, you know, name calling is one thing, but the results prove what the people of this state think is important, and I stand by what happened here in South Carolina.
So is it your sense that Senator McCain showed that he's not a strong leader by the way he handled defeat in South Carolina?
No, you just laid out a quote that I don't agree with. And
well, I'm trying to square it because you just said you judge a leader by the way they react to defeat.
well,
What am I to draw from that?
if he's calling me names after the campaign, if he's ridiculing me, then you can draw the conclusions you want. All I'm going to do is point out what the voters said.
Okay, Texas Governor George W. Bush, congratulations again, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.
Now for an analysis of Saturday's vote, we're joined by our super panel, led by Fox News Washington managing editor Brit Hume, Time Magazine's Karen Tumulty, and National Public Radio's Juan Williams. Also here are the Beltway boys, Fred Barnes and Mort Kondracki of Fox News Channel fame. Mara Eliason has the morning off, and we got plenty to discuss. First thing I want to hit Fred Barnes is take a look at some of the exit poll summaries, and we'll pull up our very first exit poll, full screen number 1 for those of you in the control room. South Carolina Republican primary. What are the most important actually, we're doing a different one. Does Bush have the knowledge to serve effectively as president? 77% said yes, 21% no. Is this a significant number, Fred, and if so, why?
Well, it's a significant number. You know, I mean, Bush has been plagued with this fear that some people have that he's sort of a dope. He doesn't know much, hadn't been in politics long. McCain even suggested something about it in his concession speech. Now, these are Republican voters, or people who've come in a Republican primary, so he ought to get 77%, but that's higher than he's gotten in other, I think that's much higher than he got in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You know, the strength of Bush in South Carolina was the regulars. It was the regular Republicans, the people who said that they're faithful to the party. It was conservatives. It was the religious right. And it was also, and I'm not sure that Bush would like to wave a banner about this, it was people who felt that the Confederate flag should continue to fly. You know, that will be used against him, you can be sure.
Do you see that as a pivotal issue, Britt?
I don't think the Confederate flag was the key issue in South Carolina, and I do think that one of the things that this victory does for Bush is that it restores to him the confidence of all these elected leaders around the country who I think had begun to waver in the aftermath of New Hampshire, wondering if he had the stuff to fight back, wondering if he could be knocked out. It's very hard for an insurgent like McCain to win coming from behind in money and support all over the country unless you can score an early knockout. This gets very much in the way of McCain's ability to do that and changes the complexion of the race dramatically back to really where it was before New Hampshire.
Karen, one of the points Senator McCain made is he thinks that George W. Bush, by embracing the tactics he did, by going on the offensive, has hurt the Republican Party and hurt George W. Bush's chances. He said last night that John McCain, was the only person who has the ability to beat anybody on the Democratic side. What do you make of the argument that Bush's attack will come back to haunt him in the future?
Well, when you consider the fact that Bush's original rationale for running, the organizing principle of his campaign was projecting himself as a unifier, you've got to look at this tough primary that he's been through and wonder if he has now tied himself to something that he needs to untie himself from in time for the November elections. But Al Gore's going to play tough, too. So I think in a lot of ways, he's reassured Republicans who wondered if he had the stuff to play in the big leagues.
Now, Juan, were you surprised by how hard George W. Bush came out in South Carolina?
I was stunned. I was particularly, you know, they've talked about the ad campaign all week in the media, but they haven't talked about his effort in terms of the phone banks, his efforts in terms of the mailings. I think he got out there, and if you look at the exit polls, Tony, the exit polls show that the voters thought that George W. Bush was the reformer. My gosh, John McCain must be in shock this morning. How could they think George W. Bush was the reformer? In addition to which, the key here that McCain thought was going to carry him to victory was turnout. He thought if he got a big turnout, he was sure to win. He got the big turnout, a historically large turnout. It turned out it also stirred up the base Republican Party. And this whole notion that McCain spoke of so bitterly last night when he said the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan was an inclusive party. We want people to come in. We're not an exclusionary party. And he therefore said George W. Bush is about exclusion. That's a big argument.
You know, the thing is that George Bush did not exclude anybody. They did not say, you know, Democrats and independents stay away. That's part of what made McCain's concession statement over the top. The fact is that despite all this report of negativity about this whole thing, both candidates emerged from this with people saying that they basically had a very favorable impression about them.
And the odd thing is that McCain's complaints about a negative campaign were obviously the reverse of the perception held by the voters in South Carolina, where the exit polls indicated they thought McCain, if anybody, ran the more negative campaign. The other thing about this is that that we've talked about this McCain concession statement, if that's what it was. It was, I think, probably the most unfortunate such statement since Bob Dole's 1988 famous interview with Tom Brokaw, in which he, with darkness in his face, said, you know, stop lying about my record. This was bad news for John McCain. It was McCain at his least attractive, and I think to the people on Capitol Hill and around the country and elsewhere who know, Republicans who know and don't particularly like McCain, this was a little taste, perhaps for the first time, of the McCain they know and don't particularly care for.
Let's take a quick look at some of that. We're probably going to be showing this later in the broadcast as well, but it's worth it's the most dramatic moment, I think we can all agree, from last night. Here's just a quick snippet of some of the comments John McCain made last evening.
I will not take the low road to the highest office in this land. I want the presidency in the best way, not the worst way. I am a uniter, not a divider. I don't just say it, I live it. A choice between my optimistic and welcoming conservatism and the negative message of fear. A choice between a record of reform and an empty slogan of reform. A choice between experience and pretense.
When we return, can John McCain regain his momentum?
And although we fell a little short tonight, our crusade grows stronger. Hold your head up, hold your head
up. Watch closely. This amazing titanium tip drill bit is actually moving sideways to do what no other drill bit could ever do. It's yours when you put the power of titanium in your hands with Titan Master XL, the amazing new titanium tip drill bits that are so strong they'll never wear out, guaranteed. Titan Master XL drill bits fit any drill, and their titanium tips give them the indestructible power to cut through virtually any surface. When you order your Titan Master XL drill set, you'll get 17 titanium tip drill bits of all sizes. Use them on wood, masonry, drywall, metal, you name the job, and Titan Master XL has it covered. You'll also receive the amazing Titan Master XL drill saw that turns any drill into a multi-function saw. The drill saw can be moved from side to side to turn small holes into big ones, smooth out squares and rectangles, cut straight line openings, and even sever materials in half. And you can turn your drill into a screwdriver with this Titan Master XL converter, which includes 6 flat and Phillips head screwdriver bits. Plus, you'll never have trouble finding the right size drill bit because the Titan Master XL drill set comes complete with this handy carrying case. And now, the Titan Master XL drill set can be yours for only $19.95. Call in the next 10 minutes, and we'll also include this complete set of 300 screws and fasteners of all sizes. The Titan Master XL drill set is so indestructible, it's backed by a lifetime warranty. If any of the drill bits ever break, we'll replace them absolutely free. You get 17 titanium tip drill bits, the titanium drill saw, screwdriver converter, 6 screwdriver bits, 300 screws and fasteners, and heavy-duty carrying case. That's 325 pieces in all for only $19.95. Order now.
To order your set of Titan Master XL drill bits, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-941-3200 or send check or money order for $19.95 plus $5.95 shipping and handling to Titan Master, 6960 Eastgate Boulevard, Lebanon, Tennessee. For quicker service, call 1-800-941-3200.
Now get the Wall Street Journal delivered for 13 weeks at just 57 cents a day, a 25% savings.
Call now, 800-861-9100. That's 800-861-9100 for the Wall Street Journal.
There is a place that offers simple pleasures, a place that's warm and cool at the same time, a place where one of the most enjoyable things to do may be nothing at all. You can get there from here. Call this toll-free number now for your free Daytona Beach Visitor's Guide and Superior Small Lodging Brochure. Daytona Beach, an oceanside tradition for over a century. Make time.
As we saw in the last segment, John McCain made it clear last night that he has just begun to fight. Here to map out McCain's road ahead is his campaign manager, Rick Davis, who joins us from Michigan. Also here, Brit Hume, Washington managing editor of Fox News. Mr. Davis, Senator McCain in a broadcast interview has just said that he thinks George W. Bush does, in fact, twist the truth sometimes like President Clinton. Didn't that argument backfire in South Carolina?
Well, we really didn't make that argument in South Carolina. We went up with a response ad early in the campaign in South Carolina, and when we were seeing the level of negativity that was being created in that campaign, we went positive. And we conducted a positive campaign for the last 2 weeks in South Carolina and didn't fight back in that regard. We didn't try to clear up the record of the kind of negative campaign that the Bush campaign waged. And I think we paid the price for it. It was a gamble. We're used to taking gambles in our campaign. It's a miracle we're even this far. We're going to push forward, though, and we're going to defend John McCain because I do think that, unfairly so, his record and his achievements have been mischaracterized in South Carolina.
But Rick, hi, it's Britt Hume here. I wonder how you can say that McCain did not make that charge in South Carolina when he went up with a television ad himself straight to camera, clearly implying that that his opponent was behaving like President Clinton, mentioned President Clinton by name. I mean, what do you mean when you say he didn't do that? Of course he did, didn't he?
No, I didn't say he didn't do it. We did it for 2 days.
You think he didn't do it enough?
We entered into a response ad as soon as we got hit by the Bush campaign, and we frankly were getting into business as usual in the Republican primary cycle. And John made a decision within 2 days after witnessing an event at a town hall meeting where a woman stood up and talked about how her son was impacted by negative phone calls that the Bush campaign or their surrogates had been waging. And he said, I've had enough of this. It's only going to hurt the party, and it's only going to hurt our potential nominee, either me or George Bush. And he took them all down, and he ran a positive campaign for 2 weeks that was contrasted with probably what was the most negative campaign that our party's seen in 2 decades.
Really?
Sure.
Well, let me just ask you this. Do you really seriously believe that Republican voters in Michigan and elsewhere will respond favorably to attempts to paint George W. Bush as being like Bill Clinton? I mean, do you think there's any chance that will work?
Well, I mean, from what I saw in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, it was a very Clinton-esque campaign. And we're not running that kind of campaign right now. I mean, we left that in 2 weeks ago in South Carolina. We've got a positive campaign here in Michigan. We've got nothing but positive ads up. We staked out some turf last night that was important to us. We're going to make sure that the public here in Michigan knows who John McCain is, what he's been doing in public office, and what kind of man he is.
One of the things Senator McCain said last night is there's a contrast between a record of reform and basically an illusion of reform. First, outline for us the key elements of John McCain's record of reform.
Well, his record of reform goes back 17 years in Congress. I mean, he took up where Barry Goldwater left off, and he has always tried to push through important reforms, even when you go back as far as the efforts that he had to encourage line item veto. He was the major moving force in the Senate. He got line item veto passed. Tort reform this last year in Y2K legislation that allowed people to be able to operate their businesses without threat of lawsuit. I mean, he's actually accomplished a lot of these things, frankly, long before George Bush ever thought of a political career. So I think his history of reform is documented and strong. And every day in this campaign, since he started over a year ago, he's talked about reform. And we're happy. Look, I'm glad George Bush has picked up the reform message because it's important that our party reestablish our links to that. But the important thing that voters need to know is John McCain has actually been doing it for 17 years and accomplished a great deal and has the commitment to do it as president.
So may we assume then that this campaign is going to be one in which in Michigan in the next couple of days and beyond that John McCain is going to be listing all these things that he achieved in Congress? I mean, it's a little interesting to me to hear you talk about the line item veto, which actually has never really come into play. That got shot down, didn't it?
Well, it got shot down by the Supreme Court, and it just shows we've got to pay attention to those people we're nominating for the justice. Look, we've been doing the same thing since the day we started this campaign. We've been talking about the important elements of reform. We've been talking about saving Social Security by spending the surplus dollars in it, cutting taxes, fixing up Medicare, and paying down the debt. These are the same things we've been talking about for months. Now, all of a sudden, the Bush campaign said, wow, that seemed to have been working. So they've accelerated their ability to take up those issues. That's great. We're for it. But the important thing is that the people here in Michigan, without the contrast of a massive negative campaign, get to hear John McCain and his message. Since New Hampshire, we've gone up over 30 points up in here in Michigan because they've responded well to this message. And I think we'll be able to continue to do that for the next 2 days.
Is it your contention that George W. Bush has no record of reform as a governor of Texas?
No, I'm not even saying anything about George Bush's record of reform. He started talking about reform about 2.5 weeks ago. And it's great. We're happy to have him in the reform movement. But it's important to note who's been doing all this in the campaign and in this Congress seat for the last 17, 18 years.
But Rick, if you're not going to say that George W. Bush has no record of reform in Texas, what on earth did McCain mean last night when he was contrasting his own, what he called his own record of living reform to emptiness?
Well, I
he
think
doesn't mean there's no record. What does that mean?
The important point, Britt, is that for 2 weeks, his image had been contrasted with unfair negative campaign advertising. And look, it ain't beanbag. We understand how the game is played, and we took a gamble of going positive and trying to talk about our issues without trying to address all these charges by the Bush campaign. They painted a totally different picture than what the public has been seeing for a year. It was important last night, and it's going to be important for the next couple of days.
So are you saying
to contrast and rebuild where John McCain started this campaign, which is a real reformer.
So you're saying, in effect, that Governor Bush's campaign tried to define your candidate and succeeded?
Well, I think the results of South Carolina speak for themselves, and I do think that George Bush spent more time defining us than he did talking about his own record, and that's fine. I mean, you know, if he wants to run the campaign he's going to run, we're going to run ours, and we're going to be here in Michigan talking about the differences between the two candidates. John McCain has a solid proposal on tax cuts and Social Security. It's different than George Bush's. George Bush gives a lot of money to the rich in tax cuts, and John McCain takes that money and puts it into Social Security.
Wait, Rick, let me just stop you right there. As a Republican, you're saying that a tax cut which lets people, rich or not, keep the money that they've earned is giving money to the rich? Is that what John McCain believes?
Look, we have a certain amount of surplus that we can use. John McCain has a responsible approach.
Rick, you're not answering my question.
He believes in giving tax cuts, and we are. But you can't give all the surplus to tax cuts and then look at Social Security and say, gosh, what are we going to do with this thing? It's going to go broke by 2014.
But you're not answering my question. Do you really believe that tax cuts represent a grant of money by the government to people, any people?
Absolutely not. I think tax cuts are great.
You just said that, though, didn't
John
you?
McCain supports it a great deal.
Didn't you just say that?
What he's saying is that you give tax cuts to the working people of America who need it most. And then you take a look at what to do with the balance of the money left over. And the big difference between John McCain and George Bush is George Bush wants to give that money in the form of a tax cut for you to people who make over $100,000 a year.
Whose money is that money?
That's 40%.
Whose money is it? Whose money is that?
Every dollar that comes in the U.S. Treasury are the people's money. And what John McCain wants to do is use it responsibly. And being responsible means saving Social Security.
Rick, if this was such a negative campaign for George W. Bush, why did so many people in exit polls say they like Senator McCain and they like Governor Bush?
Well, I've heard different stories today. I haven't seen all the numbers, but evidently our negatives, which is sort of the inside term for people who have gotten a different impression of you over the last 2 weeks, have gone up. And so that would be a total direct result of all the kind of campaign that George Bush has waged. I mean, in our campaign, where we've done in other states, we don't have any negatives. Here, there was a poll this weekend where our positives and negatives here in Michigan was 90-6. And so it certainly isn't a national phenomena that our negatives have gone up. It's a phenomena based on the massive negative campaign that was waged in South Carolina against John McCain.
Okay, Rick Davis, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to take a break. When we return, is Bush's train back on track?
I'm so glad, I'm so glad, I'm glad, I'm glad, I'm glad, I'm so glad.
You can clean and clean, but the first thing people notice when they come into your house is, does it smell clean? That's why I use Pine Sol. I get the cleaning power of Pine Sol plus 3 long-lasting scents. Because, honey, that's what Pine Sol is all about.
I'm just in for a couple of days with a sink, bottle of shampoo, and a dream. What do you think I should see? Can I ask you a couple of questions about shampoo? You want to try great shampoo? Pert Plus. This is reformulated Pert Plus. It's got water-based conditioning. Okay, fine. She looks great. How do I look? You know, one thing I can say, Las Vegas has the most uneven pavement I've ever seen in my life.
Fox News Live, I'm Joy DeMandin. A speech at a controversial Southern university is coming back to haunt George W. Bush. The Texas governor is under fire for speaking at South Carolina's Bob Jones University. The school bans interracial dating, and its leaders have attacked the Catholic Church. Republican Congressman Peter King is dropping his support of Bush in favor of John McCain. King is a Catholic and says conservatives should not support bigotry. Bush brushed it off, pointing out his brother Jeb is a Catholic. One of Elian Gonzalez's grandmothers may have wanted to stay in the U.S., that according to a spokeswoman for the nun who oversaw the grandmother's meeting with Elian. She says Sister Jean O'Loughlin decided Elian should stay here after being told that one of the women wanted to defect. Meanwhile, the U.S. District Judge who is handling the case was hospitalized after suffering stroke-like symptoms. A new judge will preside over a hearing set for Tuesday. The Space Shuttle Endeavour's mission is winding down. Endeavour's ambitious mission to map the planet ends on Monday at 7 a.m. Eastern. By the time they finish, Endeavour's astronauts will have surveyed 3/4 of the Earth's surface. That's 43.5 million square miles mapped at least twice. The duplication is needed to make 3D maps. They are scheduled to return to Earth Tuesday. And finally, Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura's Porsche could go to someone with the web name Punxsutawney77. Ventura put the 1990 Porsche 911 Carrera on the eBay internet auction site. The price, about $40,000. The organizer of the auction says he's waiting to see if the bid's legitimate. And our next update is at the top of the hour. Stay tuned. Fox News Sunday continues.
Kiplinger's awarded it Best in Class. Ward's Auto World said its engine may be the best V6 ever. It appears everyone is jumping on the Infiniti bandwagon. Then again, have you ever seen a more luxurious bandwagon? The Infiniti i30. It's all the best thinking.
If I could see my clients every day, I'd guarantee they'd never see another flake of dandruff. I tell them, use Head & Shoulders every time they shampoo. Flakes don't even stand a chance. Perfect.
I know how. I am able. I'm part of this crazy mix of people and machines. I know how. I can dance with the buttons and the levers and the wires. I'm the future. I know how. Canon.
I used to drink ordinary hot cocoa, but then I tried Ovaltine Hot. It's smooth and creamy. Creamy because it's made with milk, not water. It's chocolatey, and it's good for me, too.
Ovaltine Hot. Compare it to your hot cocoa and taste the difference.
Orange juice.
What did you say?
Orange juice.
Why?
Because you've obviously got a cold.
And?
And that means you need to be drinking more fluids, like Florida orange juice, which contains a bunch of vitamin C and other nutrients. Therefore, you sneeze, I say orange juice.
Oh, I get it. Why can't we just have a dog?
I heard that.
100% pure Florida orange juice. Are you drinking enough?
See, the video game signals the refrigerator and the robot dog brings it to me. It's got digital DNA technology from Motorola. So you outsourced it? Strategic Alliance, Susie. They help streamline the board design, you know, chips, systems, software. Did you hit your market window? Totally. Is it scalable? Yeah, and upgradable. Wow.
We're helping some of the world's smartest companies create the world's smartest products.
Does the dog have a name? We're going to put a few in front of consumers next week.
Digital DNA from Motorola, the heart of smart.
Arizona and Michigan will hold Republican primaries Tuesday. Can Michigan Governor John Engler deliver a clear victory for his friend Governor Bush? Governor Engler joins us from Grand Rapids with the answer. Britt Hume joins the questioning. Governor Engler, I want to go back to something that we talked about in the last segment with Rick Davis. Senator McCain is saying that George W. Bush, in order to try to get an advantage in this campaign, is twisting the truth. Your response?
Well, he's not twisting the truth at all.
In fact, George Bush has got the reform record. It's very evident looking at his 2 terms as governor in Texas that he's changed things fundamentally in that state. I think that's an advantage that governors have as candidates, and George Bush is an outstanding leader. He's a man with great character. This business about twisting the truth, I mean, we're in a primary campaign, and there's nuances and shadings and subtleties, I suppose, that, you know, about positions on issues, but George Bush has outlined a plan far more comprehensively than Senator McCain on a broad array of issues, and he's sticking to the plan, and he's done a nice job, and it worked well in South Carolina. He came back from the New Hampshire defeat, a feisty, engaged, and very hard-working candidate. I thought he did a very nice job, and the people of South Carolina are to be congratulated. We hope to follow suit in Michigan.
Governor Engler, as has been noted many times, the political profile of your state of Michigan is quite different from that of South Carolina, where it is thought, for example, that John McCain's emphasis on saving Social Security and his willingness to commit much more of the surplus, expected surplus to that could be a telling issue compared, for example, to George W. Bush's emphasis on tax cuts. What is your sense of how those issues will play and whether or not John McCain does not indeed have a very good chance of winning Michigan?
Well, a week ago, the Detroit News that Tony writes for, banner headline, McCain was up 9 points. Today, front page story, statistical dead heat. We've seen the momentum moving sharply to George Bush. He's got a dominant position among Republican voters. For a Republican primary, if it were just Republican voters, it would have been over long ago.
But it isn't.
But it isn't. And we are open to independent and Democrat participation.
And that helps McCain, right?
Sure. McCain is overwhelmingly winning the Democrat votes, so much so that my opponent of 2 years ago, Jeffrey Feiger, indicated he's voting for McCain. So he's getting unexpected help from people who are not the least bit interested in ever becoming Republicans. So it's a very different attempt to attract Democrats than, say, Ronald Reagan showed us or George Bush himself has been able to do in Texas. The business on Social Security, George Bush has got a plan that protects Social Security. It's Bill Clinton and Al Gore who've been the wrecking crew at any attempt at bipartisan solutions on Social Security and Medicare questions in Washington. Bush has shown a great ability to bring Republicans and Democrats together in Texas to solve problems. That's urgently needed in Washington. Interestingly, Senator McCain hasn't even been able to unite Republicans in Washington, much less Democrats. Maybe he's had more success with the Democratic side of the aisle, and so he's taking that into the campaign. I don't think that strategy works in Michigan, Brett. I think the Republicans are going to vote in big numbers here. I think they're alarmed that their own primary could be hijacked, so they're not going to let that happen. And we've got a great grassroots organization. It's harder when the states get as big as Michigan, but we've had a lot of people who've been working for a lot of months, and Tuesday is the day we hope to make it all come through.
Governor, you don't seriously think that Jeffrey Feiger actually is a help to John McCain. Don't you think that's going to rile up Republicans?
Well, I think so, but I think Feiger was maybe watching one of your competitors who this weekend broke the story that the McCain people had talked with Democratic State Representative Lamar Lemons about working to bring votes out in Detroit to aid McCain and the goal of the state rep to give me a political spanking. Well, that's beside the point, but I think that is going to incite Republicans, and so I think the clever strategy is too clever by half, and it does end up having Republicans and a lot of independent-leaning Republican voters start to say, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Well, George W. Bush is a guy who takes pride in having reached out to blacks and Hispanics. What's he going to do along those lines in Michigan in the next couple of days?
Tony, our very first visit to Michigan was a Hispanic community in southwest Detroit. We've already announced a major coalition of pastors who are on the Bush team in Detroit and other urban communities. We've got a large contingent of Polish Americans, Ukrainian Americans, different ethnic groups, Arab Americans that are for Governor Bush. So we're doing general election type strategies in a primary just simply in an effort to blunt some of the McCain effort to sort of turn this into a general election with him kind of running as the Democrat. And I think we're going to have some success. Bush is doing well among Republicans, and that's what's impressive to me because we're seeing that growing support as they look at his character and I think look at the substance of George Bush, and they're concluding, like many of us who've worked with him over the years, that he's a solid person, great values, and a great candidate.
Well, Governor, there's at least one significant exception to that rule. One of your predecessors in the governor's mansion, former Governor William Milliken, came out yesterday, and he was a three-term Republican governor, came out and said that he was a John McCain guy. Does Governor Milliken still have any political sway in Michigan?
Well, if you think about it, John McCain's really running his record based on what his biography was in the 60s and the 70s when he was a military officer, a POW. He kind of wants to overlook the 80s and the 90s when he was a two-decade-long member of Congress. Governor Milliken served back in the 70s when Senator McCain was Officer McCain, and I think that, you know, it's a little dated. Some of the people who will be voting in this election were just being born when Governor Milliken left office, so I'm not sure that it will be as significant as maybe
Governor
McCain would hope.
Governor, do a little math for us here on this primary. Obviously, your worst nightmare would be a massive independent and Democratic turnout, which would allow Senator McCain to overcome a deficit he may have among Republicans. So what percentage of the vote would have to come from independents and Democrats for McCain to win, in your judgment, and what's the alternative scenario?
Well, I suppose our Secretary of State has estimated 950,000 votes cast, so you can see that's quite a bit more. Even
that
would be a record, 50% increase over 4 years ago, and would come very close to the all-time record when Michigan's own Jerry Ford was on the ballot in running against Ronald Reagan in 1976. That topped 1 million votes. You'd have to have, I suspect, a voting profile where fully half the votes, in other words, for every Republican that voted, there was a Democrat or an independent.
Oh, wait a
vote.
minute, wait a minute. McCain's going to get some of the Republican votes. It wouldn't take that, would it?
Well, I think that we're going to get an overwhelming number of Republican votes. I don't think that last night we saw, I think, 61% of the electorate considered themselves Republicans. The rest were independent and Democrat. If we get something that looks like that in Michigan, I think we'll be fine.
But if you had a larger independent or Democratic turnout, McCain would have a great chance in your view.
Well, sure. I mean, that's the whole bet that they're making is that, I mean, they've actually mailed, this is something their campaign officially has done, they've mailed down the line Democrat voters saying, you know, it's a free chance, come on over.
Well, at the end of the day, McCain isn't wrong to do that. First of all, it helps him win, and second, in a general election, those votes are going to be helpful, aren't they?
Well, he's wrong to do it only in this sense that I think that what he's doing is not at all attempting to persuade and bring them over for the general election. You would target normally culturally conservative Democrats that are concerned about the sort of the morality play in Washington, the way the White House has been handled, the loss of respect for the presidency. You target, I think, maybe some of the ethnic community, Democratic, nominal Democrat. Hispanic would be a good example. Now, you can do it the way George Bush has done in Texas, where he's recruited Hispanics to come into the Republican Party. And Michigan, Bush is really going to have, I think, an excellent chance there.
Governor,
but McCain is trying to get the most partisan Democrat to be for him, and there's no hope they're going to be with us in November.
Very quickly, final question. Nobody knows Michigan politics like you do. Who's going to win Tuesday?
George Bush is going to win. I think it's a 4 to 5 point win in this state.
Okay. Governor John Engler, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll have a ride-along with the Carl Cam and more of our mega panel when we return.
And tonight I'm flying to Michigan.
On to Michigan.
I know how. I am able. I'm part of this crazy mix of people and machines. I know how. I can dance with the buttons and the levers and the wires. I'm the future. I know how. Canon.
Clorox introduces the quick new way to clean and disinfect. Bacteria on the kitchen counter, messes in the bathroom, all over your house. Introducing Clorox Disinfecting Wipes. For garbage cans, diaper pails, telephones.
Whoa, what was in this trash can?
Johnny made a mess in the bathroom. Hey, cool. I'm stuck to the floor.
New Clorox Disinfecting Wipes. It's from Clorox, so it's more than clean.
Does nagging back pain ruin your day? Wish you could make it go away? Now you can ease your back pain and correct poor posture with Dr. Levine's Magnetic Power Back Support. Developed by Dr. Jack Levine, former director of orthopedic surgery for Brookdale Hospital in New York, the Magnetic Power Back Support helps relieve muscle tension and stiffness that causes pain in your back and neck. The secret of the Magnetic Power Back Support is its special orthopedic design that puts your shoulders in the correct position, straightens your neck and head, and aligns your spine without discomfort. Plus, its powerful 800 Gauss magnets are strategically placed to target the lumbar and spinal areas, boosting circulation over painful joints and muscles while helping to heal and restore mobility. The result is relief from aches and pains in your back and neck, and an end to stiffness and fatigue throughout your entire body. Dr. Levine's Magnetic Power Back Support is thin enough to wear under clothing, and it's so lightweight and comfortable you'll never even know you're wearing it. And because the Magnetic Power Back Support corrects your posture, you'll feel taller and have a more flattering figure than ever before. Best of all, it works all day long, at the office, doing the laundry, gardening, playing with the kids, even while driving. And now, Dr. Levine's Magnetic Power Back Support can be yours through this special television offer for only $19.95. But wait, call in the next 10 minutes and you'll also receive 20 magnetic patches. These magnetic patches are specially designed to pinpoint pain throughout your entire body. Use them on your knees, on your elbows, on your shoulders, anywhere you have pain. Call now and break free from pain with Dr. Levine's Magnetic Power Back Support. Order now.
To order Dr. Levine's Magnetic Power Back Support, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-680-5400 or send check or money order for $19.95 plus $5.95 shipping and handling to 6960 Eastgate Boulevard, Lebanon, Tennessee. But for quicker service, call 1-800-680-5400. Behind the scenes with the governor on the night he hopes to clinch the nomination, or at least South Carolina.
Yeah, Tony, how you doing? Carl Cameron's making too much noise here. Yeah, it's a thrilling moment. She thinks victory is better than defeat.
I think victory is better than defeat.
You ran 5 miles this afternoon, Governor?
I ran 3 and walked 2.
You ran? You ran?
Ran 3 and walked 2.
Say goodbye to South Carolina.
I can't wait to win this primary.
At 1:15, the governor was on the campaign trail in Michigan.
And the mother of all panels is back. Britt Hume, Karen Tumulty, and Juan Williams, and the Beltway boys, Fred Barnes and Mark Kondracki. Again, Mara Eliason has the day off. Before we leave South Carolina totally, I want to run through very quickly some exit poll data that helps summarize what happened in the South Carolina primary. Number one, what are the most important qualities? Once again, George W. Bush does not win the stands up category. John McCain gets that, but in strong leader and conservative, George W. Bush swamps John McCain. Secondly, and this is an interesting thing, veterans, basically an even vote in South Carolina. John McCain had hoped to win big on that particular score. Then you go to the time of decision. As Karen Tumulty pointed out earlier, what happened in the last few days of this campaign was almost a tidal wave in favor of George W. Bush. You see, the last 3 days, 59% of those who made up their mind went to George W. Bush, 34% to John McCain. And finally, in terms of ideology, conservatives, basically 2/3 for George W. Bush. On the other hand, you've got 3/5 of moderates and basically 3/5 of liberals going for John McCain. Having said all that, let me go to Mort Kondracki. What does that say to you about John McCain and his own strength in terms of party identification?
Obviously, as Governor Engler said, you know, if Republicans dominate the electorate, George Bush is going to win. George Bush appeals to conservative Republicans and Republicans of all stripes, and he'll win if that's the outcome.
Brett, a lot of people argue that the turning point in the South Carolina campaign was the ad we've discussed before, where John McCain said George W. Bush twists the truth like President Clinton. Now he's been asked directly on another broadcast whether George W. Bush twists the truth like Bill Clinton, and he said yes.
I think it's a very bad mistake on McCain's part for two reasons. One is I think that in South Carolina the Bush people were able to wave that ad around like a bloody shirt, and it inoculated them in the eyes of South Carolina voters against the charge that they were going negative, which they certainly were. I think it continues to do that. And the second thing is I think that it leaves a bad taste in the mouth of many Republican voters and tends to energize them. And here you have a man who is openly, as Mort suggests, appealing to people who don't belong to the Republican Party to try to win him the Republican nomination. You know, he can do that in a state like New Hampshire where all kinds of funky stuff happens. But over the long term in this race, this is about Republican voters. And I think it is a doomed strategy.
I think, by contrast, I think Michigan's a very different state than South Carolina. I think that Governor Bush had to rely on the Republican establishment in South Carolina.
The Republican voters won.
Well, the Republican establishment to carry the day for him in terms of people like Strom Thurmond, in terms of people like Pat Robertson, Carol Campbell, going to Bob Jones University and not speaking out about what the bigotry, and I might add the anti-Catholic bigotry, which is not going to play in Michigan in the way that business went on in South Carolina.
Well, I don't think Strom Thurmond was going door to door for George Bush.
Would have been quite a sight.
Look, McCain has one huge problem, and that is to win Republican votes. They're going to dominate all these primaries even more as we get toward primaries where there is a Democratic primary the same day and all the Democrats, or most of them, will be voting in that. He's got to win Republican votes. I think you don't win Republican votes by going out and trying to bring in Democratic votes differently from the way Ronald Reagan did. McCain always says it's just like Reagan. Reagan said, look, our party's conservative, you're conservative, Democrats and independents, come on in, you share our values. What McCain is saying, the message he's saying is, look, I'm in this Republican Party. I don't share their values. You don't either. Come on in, and we'll take over this party.
You know, Michigan,
that scares more Republicans.
But, Fred, Michigan has rewarded people like Pat Buchanan, Ross Perot in the past. The idea of John McCain standing up and saying, I'm a stand-up guy, which is what you saw in that exit poll a moment ago. I'm a stand-up guy. I'm not your typical candidate. Come to me as an independent voter, I think has greater appeal in Michigan than it ever would have had in South Carolina.
I want to get Karen in here. One of the interesting things, though, is the assumption that Democratic voters will come out. That did not happen in South Carolina. Only 9% of the voters that showed up at the polls were Democratic. Is there any sense that Democrats are going to sort of hold their noses because Michigan Democrats don't like Republicans and are going to go to a Republican primary?
I think that without a wave of momentum from South Carolina, it's going to be hard to motivate these Democrats and make them think that they're part of something. And I think that coming back and once again pulling the worst move of his campaign, which was comparing Bush to Bill Clinton, A, is not going to bring Democrats in, and B, just looks desperate.
Yeah, you know why? Because Democrats don't think that they don't like Bush anywhere near as much as they like Clinton, and they probably think that's an insult to Clinton.
Yeah, you know, and Engler is making a point of this. Anything that McCain does overtly to bring Democrats in will be used against him among Republicans. That's what Engler was talking about with you. You know, there is a premium being put in all these races, Gore, Bush, McCain, on fight like hell. You know, the more you can make yourself look like Harry Truman, the better. And Gore has pummeled Bill Bradley up to a point. And the point is, you know, going over the top. And McCain went over the top, comparing Bush to Clinton, and then Bush counterpunched with that and successfully made it seem over the line, and McCain had to back down. Now McCain is going to fight like hell in Michigan, but he's liable to go over the top again.
Well, he's only got 2 days. Fred, one of the great ironies of all this is there's a single issue here. It's reform. McCain has identified the big issue for this election for Republicans and perhaps even for Democrats in terms of symbolizing, you know, the outsider coming in and cleaning up Washington.
Well, it's a helpful issue, but it's not the issue for Republican primary voters. They're mainly conservatives, and they're not great reformers, to tell the truth. Maybe they should be. And I think the most significant thing was in South Carolina the way conservatives went for Bush against a guy, McCain, who's only a little less conservative than Bush is. McCain has to cut into them, and I don't think the reform message does
Here's what concerns me. I think if I was, you know, behind the Bush campaign this morning, I'd be worried about the fact that conservatives and Republicans who did turn out did not overwhelmingly say that the tax cut was a key issue for them. In fact, they said Social Security and protecting Medicare, Medicaid were key issues. Again, that issue is going to play differently in Michigan than it played in South Carolina.
Juan is onto something there. I think the big question facing the Republican Party at this stage is whether the issue of tax and tax cuts has lost its power. If it's lost its steam among Republicans, as it seems to some extent to have, it certainly is fair to say that in the broad general electorate, it clearly will have lost its steam, and you can't really run with that as your centerpiece, as George Bush is. And it's going to be interesting to see how.
So what are Republicans hanging their hats on?
Well, it's a good question.
It's what they're doing in Congress.
At the moment, I think they're hanging their hats on the fact that they're not Clinton.
And in Congress, they're going for smaller, targeted tax cuts, very much like John McCain's proposal, the marriage penalty, the estate taxes. They're going to go for a few tax cuts.
Well, except that when it comes out in the end, I mean, look, George Bush has married himself to this big tax cut. This is his signature program, unless he's going to find some other signature program. And the one you guessed he'd have to go to is Bill Clinton. Do we want to have a third term of Bill Clinton? And it is, well, it's a good issue. On the other hand, there's a lot of people in this country who still think that Bill Clinton did a great job and the economy is rolling along. And if Gore can identify with that, Gore's going to have a good
Quick last question.
run.
Has Bush slammed the door on Democrats and independents?
No, I don't think so. I think, look, you're going to hear, South Carolina is a very conservative state. It's much more conservative than many, many other states in the country. And I think you're going to hear Bush talking again real soon about how he's a compassionate conservative and trying to appeal to these same independents and conservative Democrats.
Juan, you agree?
Well, yeah, and I think that's right. But I also think, you know what, bottom line is Bush won big. If McCain doesn't come back somewhat in Michigan, it's over.
Okay, speaking of which, panel's over too. Thank you all. We're going to take a break. When we return, my parting thoughts on political fisticuffs.
If I could see my clients every day, I'd guarantee they'd never see another flake of dandruff. I tell them, use Head & Shoulders every time they shampoo. Flakes don't even stand a chance. Perfect.
Chocolate milk? This isn't ordinary chocolate milk. It's rich chocolate Ovaltine. Compare the labels. It's got vitamins. Nestle Quick has none. When it comes to nutrition, Ovaltine beats Quick, hands down. For us, it's rich chocolate Ovaltine.
More Ovaltine, please.
What kind of beer you got? Food?
Anything else?
Haydn's Cello Concerto in C major.
Which performance? Gorski, Piatti, or Chin?
How's that possible?
Our jukebox has every performance by every artist of every piece of music ever recorded.
Could your business use the bandwidth to change everything? Ride the light. Quest.
At CompUSA, you'll always find more than 5,000 computing products. Virtually all the hardware, software, and accessories anyone could ever want. All right around the corner. Right now, get a CompUSA PC Home Series system featuring the Intel Pentium 3 processor for only $1199.99. CompUSA, the computer superstore.
You know, we took a fresh look at truck guys and found out, hey, truck guys have actual friends, and they have families. They're not the lonesome cowboys that we used to think they were. Truckers have friends. We need doors for the friends. The idea of putting 4 real doors on a compact pickup is really a no-brainer. Our brain just got there first.
During the last 2 weeks, George W. Bush and John McCain have given us something we haven't seen since 1980, a GOP primary with raw passion. Last night, McCain took to a podium and said, in effect, you better sleep well tonight, George Bush, because starting tomorrow, I'm a-coming after you. Although Bush aides professed shock at the tone, they seem pretty well primed for the fight. Some, including the governor, accuse McCain of lacking the mettle to lead. Now, this may seem like nasty stuff, but it's not. John McCain and George W. Bush both want to become president, and they want it bad. So they're pushing each other day and night, and you know what? Voters like it. They have a favorable view of both men, despite all the whiny press about negativity. And Republican primaries are attracting voters as never before. There's a real issue at stake. Who can best claim the mantle of reform? There's a real prize at issue, the Republican nomination. And there are no wimps in this crowd, just two guys going toe-to-toe, refusing to back down until the other guy falls. How great is that?